This tree traps souls. Never stand too close. They found Jabari's body at dawn, standing perfectly upright against the massive trunk of the Roho, the soul tree. Jabari's eyes were open, unblinking, his mouth frozen in a silent scream. But the truly terrifying thing, his shadow was missing. The elders of our village said his soul had been taken, absorbed into the ancient wood that had stood at the center of our lives for countless generations. Some swore that if you pressed your ear against the bark at midnight, you could hear him screaming, begging to be released. I never believed those stories until 3 nights ago when I saw the tree move. It wasn't the wind that bent its branches. It wasn't rain that made dark liquid seep from its bark. And those whispers, those terrible, pleading whispers, didn't come from any living throat. My name is Nia. I'm recording this warning because by sunrise tomorrow, I will likely be gone. The tree has already taken for others. I'll be the 5th unless I can uncover what no one has managed in over 200 years. How to free a soul from the Roho. If you're watching this, it might already be too late for me, but it's not too late for you to hear my story and learn why you should never, ever stand too close to a tree that feeds on souls. I returned to my ancestral village of Kitovu after 12 years in the city. My grandmother's death had called me back. Her final wish was for me to oversee the traditional mourning rituals that had been passed down through our family for generations. As the last direct descendant of the village's original spiritual leader, the responsibility fell to me, despite my reluctance. The journey from the city took 6 hours by bus, followed by a 2-hour walk down dirt roads that seemed to deliberately wind away from civilization. When I finally arrived, dusty and exhausted, the village seemed eerily quiet, as if holding its breath. Uncle Kamo met me at the edge of the settlement, his weathered face grave. "You shouldn't have come, Nia," he said without greeting. "Not now." I had no choice, I replied, adjusting my backpack. Grandmother's letter was clear. The rituals must be performed by family. He shook his head. "Things have changed since you left. The tree has awakened." I sighed, remembering the old superstitions that had driven me to the city in the first place. The Roho stood at the center of our village, a massive baobab tree with a trunk so wide that 15 people holding hands couldn't encircle it. Its bark was unusually dark, almost black in places, and no birds ever nested in its twisted branches. According to village legend, the tree had been planted by our ancestors to trap a malevolent spirit that had terrorized the region. The spirit's essence was bound within the wood, but at a terrible price. The tree required a sacrifice every 50 years to maintain the binding, a voluntary guardian who would merge with the tree, adding their soul to strengthen the prison. For centuries, an elder would volunteer when the time came. It was considered the highest honor, but the last sacrifice had been my grandfather, who didn't volunteer, but was chosen when no one stepped forward. His death had driven my mother away from the village, taking me with her. The stories are just that, stories, I told my uncle as we walked toward the village center. Trees don't eat souls. Uncle Kamo grabbed my arm, his fingers digging painfully into my flesh. For people gone in the last month, first Jabari, then the twins, then old Mama Zalika, all found standing against the trunk, eyes open, no shadow to be seen. A chill ran down my spine despite the afternoon heat. Coincidences, I insisted, or some kind of poison in the area. 50 years, Nia, he whispered. It's been exactly 50 years since your grandfather was taken. The tree hungers again. I pulled my arm free. I'm here for grandmother's rituals, nothing more. I'll be gone in 3 days. His eyes, bloodshot and worried, searched my face. 3 days might be too long. My grandmother's house stood in the shadow of the Roho, closest to the massive tree than any other dwelling. As a child, this had terrified me. I would lie awake at night, convinced I could hear whispers scraping against my window, branches tapping like fingers trying to get in. Now, as I unlocked the door with a key Uncle Kamo had given me, those childhood fears felt foolish. Inside, everything was meticulously organized, just as grandmother had always kept it. Herbs hung from ceiling beams, drying. Shelves lined with jars of mysterious powders and liquids covered one wall. Her divination tools, cowrie shells, carved bones, and smooth stones lay ranged on a small table. On her bed lay a sealed envelope with my name written in her precise handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with instructions for the 3-day ritual and a small iron key. The key opens the chest beneath my bed. The letter explained, "Inside you will find what you need to perform the cleansing of passage. But be warned, Nia, the MTI Roho stirs. It knows the time has come. Do not venture outside after sunset, and whatever you hear calling your name, do not answer." I folded the letter with trembling hands. Grandmother had always been superstitious, but this seemed excessive even for her. Still, I knelt and pulled out the heavy wooden chest from beneath her bed. The iron key turned with a reluctant groan, revealing contents that made my blood freeze. Inside lay 5 small cloth dolls, each with a name stitched into its chest. Jabari, Fumo, Faragi the twins' names, Zalika, and Nia. My own name, stitched in red thread. Beneath the dolls was a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. I opened it to find my grandfather's handwriting, detailing the history of the MTI Roho and the binding ritual our ancestors had performed centuries ago. The spirit cannot be destroyed, he had written, only contained. The tree feeds on souls freely given, but when denied, it will take what it needs. 1 soul every 50 years maintains the prison. Without this sacrifice, the spirit would break free, consuming every living soul for miles before moving on. This is the burden our family accepted, to choose the sacrifice when none steps forward. I closed the journal, my mind reeling. It couldn't be true. Yet the evidence of her recent deaths, the dolls with their names, and the timing, exactly 50 years after my grandfather, was difficult to dismiss as coincidence. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the windows, I heard it, a soft scraping at the door, then a whisper, so faint I almost missed it, "Naya." I froze, eyes fixed on the door. "Naya, come outside. The tree is waiting." The voice sounded like my grandmother's, but with something else beneath it. Something ancient and hungry. I backed away, heart pounding, until I hit the wall. Not real, I told myself. Just the wind. But the wind doesn't speak your name. I spent that night huddled in grandmother's bed, doors and windows locked, as the whispering continued until dawn. When morning came, bleary-eyed and exhausted, I began the first day of ritual preparations, determined to complete my duty and leave this haunted place as quickly as possible. The cleansing ritual required water from the village well, which unfortunately stood in the clearing near the MTI Roho. As I approached with my bucket, I deliberately kept my eyes averted from the massive tree, but something caught my peripheral vision, movement where there should be none. Despite my better judgment, I looked. The tree's bark seemed to be breathing, pulsing slightly like the chest of a sleeping giant, and across its surface, I could swear I saw faces pressing outward, as if trying to break free from within the wood. I dropped the bucket and ran back to grandmother's house, my heart threatening to burst from my chest. That afternoon, Uncle Kamo visited, bringing food and news that made my skin crawl. The Council of Elders met last night. He said quietly, "They've decided a sacrifice must be chosen by tomorrow's sunset." And I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "Your grandmother was our spiritual leader. The responsibility falls to her bloodline. To you, Nia." I laughed bitterly. "You expect me to choose someone to die for a superstition?" His face hardened. "If no one is chosen, the tree will take whoever it wants. It's already begun hunting. Can't you feel it?" I wanted to argue, but the truth was, I could feel something a presence watching me, stalking me. That night, I returned to my grandfather's journal, searching desperately for information that might help me understand what was happening. In the final pages, I found something disturbing. My grandfather's writing had become frantic, the words slashing across the paper. I've discovered the truth. The binding was corrupted. The original sacrifice was meant to be renewed by willing guardians. But somewhere through the generations, fear replaced devotion. The tree doesn't need death, it needs communion. A living guardian who serves as bridge between worlds. The spirit trapped inside isn't evil. It's ancient knowledge our ancestors feared. I will correct this mistake. I will become the true guardian. The entry ended there. The next page had been torn out. That night, the whispering grew louder. Not just my name now, but pleas for help, for release. I covered my ears with a pillow, but the voices seemed to come from inside my own head. Free us, Nia. Correct the mistake. Become the bridge. On the second day, I confronted Uncle Kamo with my grandfather's journal. Did you know? I demanded. Did you know the sacrifice might be unnecessary? His eyes widened in genuine surprise. What are you talking about? I showed him the journal, watching as his expression shifted from confusion to hope to doubt. Your grandfather was changed in his final days, Uncle Kamo said carefully. He spoke of visions, of voices from the tree. We thought the spirit was manipulating him, or he discovered the truth. I countered. What if everything we believe about the MTI Roho is wrong? What if it's not a prison, but a repository of knowledge? Before he could answer, a scream tore through the village. We rushed outside to find a crowd gathering near the tree. A young boy, no more than 7, stood rigid against the trunk, his small hands pressed flat against the bark. His mother tried to pull him away, but he seemed rooted to the spot. It's calling me, the boy said in a voice too deep for his small frame. It's so beautiful inside the wood. I pushed through the crowd and knelt before the boy. His eyes were distant, looking at something none of us could see. What's your name? I asked gently. Jabari, he replied, though I knew this wasn't the child's name. I'm Jabari, and Fumo, and Fergie, and Zalika. We are many. We are waiting. A chill ran through me. Waiting for what? The boy's eyes focused suddenly, locking onto mine with frightening intensity. For you, Nia, the last of the bloodline, the one who can open the door. His body went limp then, collapsing into his mother's arms. The crowd began to mutter fearfully, many making signs to ward off evil. That night, I returned to grandmother's chest and examined the 5 dolls more carefully. Each had a small pocket sewn into its back, containing a slip of paper with strange symbols I didn't recognize. All except mine, which was empty. In the journal, my grandfather had mentioned a ceremony of communion rather than sacrifice. I began to wonder if these dolls were part of that forgotten ritual. As midnight approached, the whispering started again, but this time I didn't hide. I stood at the window, watching the MTI Roho in the moonlight. Its branches seemed to reach toward my grandmother's house, though they were too far to actually touch it. Show me, I whispered back. Show me what you want. In my mind, clear as day, came a vision of myself walking to the tree, placing my hands on its bark, and pushing, not against the wood, but through it, as if the solid trunk was merely an illusion. On the third day, I made my decision. The final ritual for my grandmother required me to lead a procession at sunset, carrying her personal items to the village shrine for blessing. As the sun began its descent, I gathered the 5 dolls, the journal, and the small iron key, placing them in a basket covered with ceremonial cloth. The villagers gathered, solemn and afraid. Many cast nervous glances at the MTI Roho, which seemed more alive than ever, its bark rippling in places despite the still air. I led the procession past the shrine, continuing toward the tree. Murmurs of confusion and fear rose behind me. What is she doing? Stop her! Uncle Kamo grabbed my arm. Nia, no! The tree will take you. I met his gaze steadily. It won't take me. It's calling me. There's a difference. You don't understand what you're doing, he pleaded. I think I'm the only one who does, I replied. My grandfather tried to tell you, this isn't about sacrifice. It's about communion. I pulled away from him and approached the tree. The massive trunk loomed before me, and in the fading light, I could clearly see the faces pressed against the bark from within. Dozens of them, including the for recent victims, and at the center, my grandfather. His eyes met mine, and a voice that was both inside and outside my head spoke clearly. The circle must be completed. The bridge must be restored. I placed the 5 dolls at the base of the tree, arranging them in a semicircle. Then, taking a deep breath, I pressed both palms against the bark. It yielded like warm wax, my hands sinking into the wood. There was no pain, only a strange tingling sensation as the tree began to absorb me. Behind me, I heard shouting, crying. Someone tried to pull me back, but it was too late. The tree had me, but I wasn't afraid. As my body melded with the ancient wood, I understood at last. The MTI Roho wasn't evil. It was a doorway, a living repository of our ancestors' wisdom, preserved through the ages. The spirit within was not trapped. It was the collective consciousness of all who had joined with the tree, maintaining the bridge between worlds. My grandmother had known. She had prepared me for this moment, knowing I would be the one to restore the true purpose of the tree. As my consciousness expanded, joining with countless others within the living wood, I used the last of my physical ability to turn and face the village. The tree doesn't trap souls, I said, my voice resonating strangely as half my body had already merged with the trunk. It preserves them. We are the guardians of knowledge too powerful to be lost. This is not my end. It is my beginning. My final words before I fully merged with the MTI Roho were, I am not the sacrifice. I am the bridge. The villagers say that the MTI Roho has changed since that day. Its bark now glows softly at night, and its branches bear fruit for the first time in living memory. Those who approach with respect and genuine need find that placing their hands against the trunk brings visions, guidance, healing. But those who come with fear or ill intent feel an overwhelming dread, an urge to run far away. And sometimes, on moonless nights, they say you can see a woman's face in the bark, my face, watching over the village. So heed this warning. Never stand too close to the MTI Roho unless you're prepared to see the truth it holds. For the tree doesn't truly trap souls. It reveals them in all their beauty and terror. And some truths, once seen, can never be unseen.